Hey guys, Caddy Tulama coming back at you guys with another animation review, I guess I could call it. Not an anime, but recently went through and watched all of um, the new Masters of the Universe Revelations and the new He-Man series on Netflix. And I ended up uh, with a lot of mixed feelings about this series. I grew up watching He-Man. My brother was a big He-Man. Fan, and had all the toys growing up. Watched the show, and I just don't know how to feel about this one. I watched all of the stuff coming up to the release of this new one. All the stuff with Kevin Smith, all his videos. He is the producer of he is the producer of this series, and it pretty much picks up right where the original 1980s He-Man left off, and then pretty much takes an immediate right-hand turn at the end of episode 1. It's a 5-episode part 1, and they released it in 2 separate parts because all of part 2 pretty much spoils all of part 1, I guess. There's some serious crossover, not crossover, but just there's some serious information in part 2 that they wanted to keep secret and let everybody digest part 1. Without getting into too much spoilers, this is not a He-Man show. He's in the first episode, he's in the last episode, but most of this has to do with Teela, the Man-at-Arms guard, and then just the normal group that we see from He-Man, the show. We got Orko, we got Evil Lyn, Beastman, we got all the main people. But as far as Skeletor, He-Man, they are not in this. They are really not. It is not a He-Man show. Part 2, I guess, is going to have. We'll tie that all together, and that will be the real stuff with He-Man and everything. But it was rather disappointing in that sense that how it starts, was disappointing, and how it ended with when it strictly had to do with He-Man, because I was watching it to watch He-Man. If I'm going to be honest, like I wanted to see I Have the Power, and I wanted to see him do some Superman type stuff, just beating people up, and we don't get too much of that, just because of the nature of the story that they made. With it being 5 episodes, it flew by. Episode 5 actually felt a little cramped on how they put kind of everything together at the end. And how they kind of wrapped up part 1, it really felt cramped. But, it's not a bad addition to... It's not a bad addition to He-Man, where other shows and other movies just haven't held up. I don't know. I'm held back by my feelings of there's no He-Man. There's really no He-Man in the show. The best He-Man stuff comes in the first episode, and I loved it. I loved that. I would have loved to have seen more He-Man stuff, but I understand we have to kind of mix it up. It can't just be He-Man versus Skeletor, because that's how it always is. And this definitely does a really good job of world building, you know, filling in a lot of those answers. If you watch the original show, you know, filling in the answers that were, you know, of those questions that they left in the first show. Because, I mean, let's be honest, the original He-Man is not great, you know, even, you know, people will talk about it, but it's just nostalgia. If you go back and try to watch it, it's really, the cartooning is not great, the drawing's not great, you know, it's not a great series. And that's because, I don't know how many people know this, but there's a He-Man documentary out there that talks about how Mattel, you know, the toy business was kind of changing in the late 70s, early 80s, and they had a shot to buy or to copyright like the Star Wars Toys franchise, and they kind of bypassed it and thought it was gonna bust, but it ended up being like the #1 selling toy of all time for a long time. And so trying to get into that market, they wanted to kind of create their own storyline or their own characters. And so they created He-Man, and they created all these other characters, Beastman and Merman and Skeletor and all the, you know, Man-at-Arms. They created all these characters, and but then they thought, like, well, nobody's going to buy these toys just to buy these toys. You know, the kids have to have a reason to buy these toys. So the toys actually came first, and then they made the show afterwards to sell the toys. And it only ran 2 seasons. Season 1, the toys were like an explosion at stores. People were buying them up left and right. It was a huge success. And then almost in the opposite way, the second year of production for the toys, it basically just fell off a cliff, and nobody bought He-Man stuff anymore. Excuse me. And they stopped making the show after season 2. Now, they've tried to bring it back in the late 90s. They tried to bring it back in the 2000s. You know, there are a couple different, you know, He-Man shows that never caught on. And so it's gutsy for them to try again, you know, to bring He-Man back. I mean, I guess they felt confident with the success of the She-Ra show that has been on for like now 5 or 6 seasons on Netflix. You know, my daughter has pretty much watched all of the She-Ra, the new She-Ra show, and I actually was kind of hoping that this new He-Man would be a crossover event with She-Ra, with the way they ended She-Ra, but it doesn't seem to be going that way. So, I mean, we'll see, but the art style is completely different. The feel of the show is completely different. So, I mean, we'll see what the result of that is, but it looks very unlikely that they will be a crossover. The feel of the show is very similar. You know, there's a lot of the same dumb jokes, basically just dad jokes throughout the whole show. You know, I mean, just the same kid-natured dad jokes, you know. A lot of, you know, with Triclops, you know, a lot of, hey, with all those eyes, I'm surprised you didn't see that one coming. You know, just those types of jokes. And I thought there were a few good ones in there, but a lot of corny jokes in there, but definitely nostalgia feel for it, so I kind of let it pass. Rating it, I would put it, animation was good, storyline was okay. I'm really held back with the fact that it's a He-Man show without He-Man. You know, we'll see how part 2 does, but right now, for me, it's a high B. It's a high B tier show. It's a B plus. You know, it could be saved with season 2. We'll see. You know, we'll see how they bring it together. I wouldn't say there was any holes in the writing or anything like that, but definitely some good additions. Some sad subtractions, you know, like nobody ever died in the original He-Man show, but we have some deaths. We lose a lot of people. You know, we've lost people. We lose people in this one. So definitely has a little bit more of a serious tone. Definitely some weird stuff with, you know, I wouldn't say gore, but there's definitely some stuff. You know, people get stabbed, people get turned into robots, and we see it some stuff. You know, it's definitely a little bit. Your kid's got to be a little bit older for it. You know, you can't have. I wouldn't let my if my daughter was, you know, 3 or 4, I wouldn't let her watch it because it might just freak her out a little too much. You know, 8, 9, 10, probably not. You know, probably not as worried. But anything above that, they might not enjoy it. You know, they might not enjoy the jokes. They're not going to enjoy some of the stuff in it. You know, the humor. So there's definitely a small, what I feel is a small window of opportunity to attract the kids to the show. We'll see how season 2 goes. This is definitely a very pro-girl show. I would personally, again, I want to see some more He-Man. I hope it happens in part 2, but we'll see. We'll see, you know. But we'll leave it at that. If you guys seen the new Revelations, Masters of the Universe Revelation, you know, comment, like, subscribe. You know, let's get talking about some He-Man. You know, I'm glad we're seeing some of this more. You know, some of this stuff from my childhood kind of popping out these last couple of years. You know, it's kind of interesting to get my daughter's take on a lot of the stuff that I grew up watching in the remakes. You know, so that makes it a little bit more fun. But yeah, that's going to do it for me, guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.